Napoleon Bonaparte was not born powerful. He was not born into a rich royal family. He was not tall. He was not loved by everyone. Yet, at one point, almost all of Europe feared him. People still ask one question: why was Napoleon feared more than loved? To understand this, we must go back to the beginning. Napoleon was born in Corsica, a small island. His family was not important. From a young age, he felt like an outsider. At school in France, other students laughed at him. They mocked his accent. They mocked his background. Napoleon learned something very early in life. The world does not respect weakness. This belief became part of his mind. While other children played, Napoleon studied. He read books about war, history, and power. He imagined himself leading armies. Inside him, a strong ambition was growing. Ambition is a dangerous thing. It can build great leaders, but can also destroy empathy. Napoleon wanted control, not love. He believed love was weak. Fear was strong. When the French Revolution started, chaos filled the country. Many people were afraid. Napoleon saw opportunity. Where others saw danger, he saw a path to power. He did not wait for permission. He did not wait to be liked. He acted. This is where the psychology of power begins. People often think leaders must be kind to be respected. Napoleon believed the opposite. He believed, if people fear losing to you, they will follow you. As his military victories increased, his reputation grew. Soldiers trusted his mind. Enemies feared his speed and strategy. Napoleon was calm under pressure. He made fast decisions. He accepted losses without emotion. This made him unpredictable, and people fear what they cannot predict. Soon, Napoleon was no longer just a general. He became a symbol of power, a man who came from nothing, a man who refused to be small. But something important was missing: love. He was respected. He was obeyed, but he was not deeply loved. And this difference would shape his destiny. In the next part, we will see how ambition slowly replaced empathy, and why Napoleon chose fear over connection. As Napoleon's power grew, something inside him began to change. At first, he fought for France. He spoke about freedom, order, and stability. People believed him. But deep inside, Napoleon was fighting for something else: himself. Ambition became his main fuel. Ambition is not always loud. Sometimes it is cold and quiet. Napoleon did not shout. He calculated. He learned how people think. He noticed one important truth: people follow confidence, not kindness. When Napoleon entered a room, he spoke little. He listened more than he talked. His silence made others nervous. Silence can feel powerful. Many leaders try to be friendly. Napoleon did not. He stayed distant. This distance created mystery, and mystery created fear. Soldiers respected him because he knew war. Politicians feared him because he knew people. Napoleon rewarded loyalty, but he punished weakness. He believed empathy made leaders soft, so he controlled his emotions. Even in victory, he stayed serious. Even in loss, he stayed calm. This emotional control made him look unstoppable. But there was a cost. He stopped seeing people as individuals. He started seeing them as tools. Generals became pieces on a board. Soldiers became numbers. Countries became goals. Power slowly replaced compassion. Many people admired him, but few felt close to him. Napoleon did not care. He believed closeness weakens authority. Fear keeps order. Fear keeps control. As his ambition grew, so did his hunger. He wanted more land, more influence, more recognition. Winning was no longer enough. He wanted dominance. This is where ambition becomes dangerous. When ambition grows without empathy, it never feels satisfied. Napoleon's mind was always moving forward. He never stopped to ask, what is the cost? He believed history would forgive him. But history remembers everything. In the next part, we will explore how Napoleon used fear as a weapon and why it worked so well. At first, Napoleon understood something most leaders never fully learn. Fear moves faster than love. Love takes time. Fear works instantly. When Napoleon became more powerful, he changed the way he ruled. He stopped trying to be admired. He focused on being feared. This was not an accident. Napoleon studied human behavior carefully. He knew that people obey when they believe punishment is certain. So he created an image of a man who never forgives weakness. He punished disloyal generals publicly. He removed officers without explanation. He replaced them quickly. This sent a clear message. You are useful only while you are strong. Soldiers feared disappointing him more than the enemy, and this fear made them fight harder. In battles, Napoleon was ruthless. He attacked fast. He gave no time to recover. Enemy armies felt overwhelmed. They did not only fear defeat, they feared Napoleon himself. His name became heavier than his army. Psychologists call this symbolic power. When a leader becomes a symbol, people react emotionally, not logically. Many enemies surrendered before fighting, not because they were weak, but because fear had already won. Napoleon also used fear politically. He controlled newspapers. He controlled messages. He controlled what people believed. Stories about his victories spread quickly. Stories about his losses disappeared. This created an illusion. Napoleon never fails, and people fear what seems unstoppable. But fear has a hidden weakness. It creates obedience, not loyalty. People obey while you are strong, but they wait for the moment you fall. Napoleon did not notice this danger, or maybe he ignored it. He believed fear was enough. He believed respect and fear were the same. They are not. Respect stays when power fades. Fear disappears the moment strength is questioned. Still, for many years, fear worked perfectly. Napoleon ruled Europe not just with armies, but with the idea that resisting him was pointless. But inside his empire, cracks were forming, silently. In the next part, we will see how fear created enemies even inside his own circle, and why isolation started to grow around him. As Napoleon's empire expanded, his circle became smaller, not because he lacked people, but because he lacked trust. Fear kept everyone obedient, but it also kept them distant. Generals stopped speaking honestly. Advisors chose safe words instead of true ones. They learned one rule: say what Napoleon wants to hear. This is a dangerous place for any leader. When fear replaces honesty, mistakes grow silently. Napoleon began to rely only on himself. He believed no one understood his vision, and maybe he was right. But leadership without feedback becomes blind. He stopped listening deeply. He interrupted more. He decided faster. Speed felt like strength, but speed without reflection creates errors. Napoleon also tested loyalty constantly. He changed positions suddenly. He gave impossible tasks. He watched who failed. This created tension. People competed instead of cooperating. They protected themselves, not the mission. Inside the empire, unity slowly weakened. Napoleon felt alone, but he hid it. Admitting loneliness felt like weakness. So he worked more, planned more wars, expanded more. Power became his answer to discomfort. But power cannot replace connection. Psychologically, isolation changes perception. When leaders feel alone, they believe, I'm the only one who can save this. This belief is dangerous. Napoleon began to ignore warnings. Some advisors warned him about long wars. Others warned him about exhaustion. He dismissed them. Fear had trained them too well. They no longer argued. They obeyed. And obedience is quiet. Too quiet. Napoleon stood at the top of Europe, but the silence around him was growing. Silence before mistakes. Silence before collapse. In the next part, we will explore how overconfidence slowly replaced strategy and why Napoleon started believing in his own myth. Napoleon had defeated too many enemies. Victory became normal for him. And when success repeats, the mind changes. He stopped asking, is this the best move? He started thinking, this will work because I am Napoleon. This is where confidence becomes danger. Napoleon began to trust his instincts more than facts. Maps mattered less. Weather warnings were ignored. Logistics felt boring. He believed genius could replace preparation. Psychologically, this is called illusion of control. When someone wins many times, they believe they control outcomes, even when they don't. Napoleon saw himself as unstoppable, not just strong, but chosen. He spoke about destiny, about history remembering him forever. This belief gave him courage, but it also removed caution. Generals noticed the change. He took bigger risks. He attacked faster. He ignored delays. Anyone who questioned him felt unsafe. Fear returned, but stronger. Advisors stopped warning him. They thought, if he failed before and still won, why argue? Napoleon's ego grew quietly. He no longer needed confirmation. He was the confirmation. This is the moment many leaders fall, not from enemies, but from inside their own mind. Because reality does not respect ego. It respects preparation. Napoleon planned campaigns that depended on perfection. Perfect timing, perfect weather, perfect obedience. But the real world is never perfect. Small problems began appearing. Supplies arrived late. Soldiers were tired. Allies hesitated. Napoleon pushed forward anyway. He believed force could solve everything. And for a while it did. But cracks were forming under the surface. In the next part, we will see how ambition pushed Napoleon into his most dangerous decision, and why turning back felt impossible. Every powerful leader faces a moment when ambition speaks louder than reason. For Napoleon, that moment was clear. He believed expansion was survival. If he stopped moving forward, his enemies would grow stronger. So stopping felt like death. This mindset is dangerous. Napoleon convinced himself that more control meant more safety, but control has limits. He began planning campaigns that stretched his empire too far. Distances became longer, supply lines weaker, communication slower. Still, Napoleon moved forward. Why? Because turning back would mean doubt, and doubt felt like weakness. Psychologically, this is called commitment bias. When someone invests too much, they continue even when evidence says stop. Napoleon ignored signs of risk. Terrain, hostile populations, unreliable allies. He believed his reputation alone would keep order. But fear does not travel well over distance. The farther his armies moved, the weaker fear became. Local resistance grew quietly. Napoleon responded with force. Force created more hatred. Hatred created rebellion. A cycle began. His generals warned him. Not openly. Fear still existed. But carefully. Napoleon listened, but did not change course. He felt trapped by his own image. A man who never retreats. A man who always wins. He believed history demanded constant victory. But history does not care about belief. It cares about consequences. Napoleon crossed a line. A strategic line. A psychological line. Beyond it, there was no easy return. In the next part, we will see how exhaustion, resistance, and reality began breaking the myth, and why fear stopped working. Fear is powerful, but it is not endless. For years, Napoleon ruled through fear and respect. But as wars continued, something changed. People became tired. Soldiers were exhausted. Civilians were angry. Allies were unsure. Fear requires energy, and the empire was losing energy. Napoleon's enemies learned his patterns. They avoided direct battles. They waited. They attacked supplies, not soldiers. This strategy weakened his armies slowly. Fear cannot stop hunger. Fear cannot warm cold soldiers. Fear cannot fix broken boots. Napoleon demanded discipline. But discipline without rest becomes rebellion. Some soldiers followed orders without belief. Others followed only because they had no choice. Loyalty turned into survival. Psychologically, fear works best in short periods. Long-term fear creates resistance. People stop caring. They think, even death is better than this. This is the moment fear fails. Napoleon increased punishment. More control. More pressure. But pressure does not create strength. It creates cracks. Local populations began helping enemies. Information leaked. Trust disappeared. Napoleon noticed discipline falling. He responded with anger. Anger feels powerful, but it clouds judgment. He blamed generals. He blamed soldiers. He blamed fate. He did not blame strategy. This is common in falling leaders. Admitting mistakes feels more dangerous than continuing them. Napoleon still believed fear would save him. But fear had lost its edge. People were no longer impressed. They were desperate. In the next part, we will see the critical moment where reality crushed ambition and how one decision accelerated the fall. Reality is patient. It waits while ego speaks, then arrives without mercy. For Napoleon, reality arrived slowly, and then all at once. His army moved deeper in a hostile land. Supplies became rare. Food was not enough. The weather turned cruel. Cold does not fear reputation. Snow does not respect history. Napoleon had planned for speed, but resistance slowed everything. Villages were empty. Resources were destroyed. Enemies refused open battle. This strategy confused Napoleon. He was trained to defeat armies, not emptiness. Psychologically, this created stress. When control disappears, the mind searches for blame. Napoleon blamed generals. He blamed timing. He blamed betrayal. But the truth was simple. He underestimated reality. Overconfidence had blinded him. His soldiers suffered first. They marched without rest. They fought without hope. They obeyed without belief. The myth of invincibility began to break. Rumors spread. Napoleon can be defeated. Napoleon is human. These ideas were dangerous. Once fear breaks, it never returns fully. Napoleon felt pressure from all sides. Enemies closed in. Allies hesitated. His army weakened. Still, retreat felt impossible. Retreat meant admitting failure. And failure was not part of his identity. So he delayed. Every delay cost lives. Every step forward cost morale. Reality was winning, not with strength, but with patience. In the next part, we will see how the fall became unavoidable and how Napoleon faced the loss of power and control. Power is loud when rising, but very quiet when falling. Napoleon felt the silence first. Orders returned slowly. Messages carried bad news. Victories disappeared. His army was no longer an army. It was a group of survivors. Soldiers stopped believing in glory. They believed only in escape. Napoleon noticed the change. Eyes avoided his. Voices became careful. Confidence was gone. Fear no longer protected him. People were not scared to fail him anymore. Psychologically, this is isolation at the top. When leaders lose power, they lose connection. Napoleon still spoke with authority. But authority without belief is empty. Allies abandoned him. They chose safety over loyalty. Former enemies grew bolder. They no longer feared his name. Napoleon tried to negotiate. Negotiation was something he once ignored. Now, it was his only option. But history had moved forward. His past victories no longer mattered. He was judged only by his weakness. This is the cruel rule of power. Success is remembered briefly. Failure is remembered clearly. Napoleon lost control of his empire. Territories fell one by one. He returned not as a conqueror, but as a man surrounded by loss. In his quiet moments, he faced a new enemy. Himself. Regret. Pride. Questions without answers. In the final part, we will see what Napoleon's story teaches us about ambition, fear, and leadership, and why he was feared but never truly loved. Napoleon ended his journey far from the battlefield. No cutouts, no cheering soldiers, no empire, only silence. The man who once ruled Europe now ruled only his thoughts. This is the final truth about fear-based power. Fear builds quickly, but it leaves nothing behind. People obeyed Napoleon. They admired his intelligence. They respected his discipline, but they did not love him. Love creates loyalty. Fear creates distance. When his power disappeared, so did his followers. No one protected him. No one sacrificed for him. History remembered his victories, but it also remembered his mistakes. Psychologically, Napoleon teaches us this. Ambition without limits becomes blindness. Control without trust becomes isolation. Fear without respect becomes rebellion. Napoleon believed he was shaping destiny. But destiny does not listen to ego. It listens to reality. His story is not about height, or battles, or crowns. It is about balance. Power needs wisdom. Leadership needs empathy. Strength needs restraint. Napoleon was feared more than loved. And in the end, that fear was not enough.